Radio OKiTALK, Radio OKiTALK, von Mensch zu Mensch.
Hello and welcome to another edition with the Wizard of Odd, Bryan. Hello and welcome. How are you?
Hi, Raphael. I'm really great. It's a great time of year. My favorite holiday just passed. By the way, happy solstice. My favorite celebratory day of the year. And man, that energy on the solstice is just so delicious and yummy and so full of creative potential. Just awesome. So anyway, just happy solstice, Christmas, Hanukkah, anything else you choose to celebrate as well. It's all wonderful at this time.
Happy Yule, happy Christmas, happy whatever holiday you may be celebrating. Certainly we have specific astrological correspondences happening right now on which you may wish to comment, just to give some contextual background information, at least in terms of the star map we may look at.
You know, this time of year there have been so many different wonders happening. You know, the Geminid meteor shower just took place about a week ago, and man, I was out there for the whole thing. And you know, I live in Miami, so you get a lot of upper atmosphere humidity and stuff most of the time, but it was just clear as a bell, and they were just raining like for hours and hours and hours. That was just amazing. And we just moved into Capricorn, which is cardinal Earth. And you know, if you're planning on doing some projects to further your financial situation or your health or anything that relates to cardinal Earth right now, especially when it's at its most intense, is a great time to pull that off. You know, and all our good buddies Saturn, Jupiter, and Pluto, everybody's direct right now, which I've just been enjoying immensely. Yeah. You know, we're coming up on something that's going to occur on the equinox, this coming spring equinox. And, you know, astrologically, there are so many different systems of calculating stars, depending on where they came from, where it originated, etc. You know, one of the, the couple of systems that get used in the West a whole lot have not really taken into consideration the movement of the position of the stars over the millennia. And the last few years, I've been working with somebody that has kind of forged his own zone with this, and calculated a system figuring in the exact movement of the stars and where things are actually happening. And by those, and I have noticed, wow, very, 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 very accurate. So coming up this equinox is, by those calculations, the exact moment that it shifts from the age of Pisces to the age of Aquarius. And you know, people have been singing about the age of Aquarius since the 60s, and you know, this is the dawning of the age of Aquarius, but it really has been the last dregs of Pisces. And really, when you look around at the situations that are happening in the world, and you know, it's like everybody's fighting everybody and everybody hates everybody, and you know, it's like this crazy time like I have never experienced. And you know, it's very much not just that element, but across the board, it way more resembles Pisces than it resembles Aquarius to me. So I'm looking super forward to that time, and what that energy will actually mean for the world. and finding some balance and hope and future, and it's really very exciting. You know anything about that, Raphael?
Well, the one thing that comes to mind, of course, we have as we have discussed here a few times, also with Jim, maybe also with you, in regards to the yugas. So, of course, the larger cycles going on. I just find it generally very interesting. Always with long historic periods, it's often difficult to make proper calculations, whether it's about dating materials or properly stacking stars, I would assume. However, I find it quite interesting that, as far as I understand, the stars, even if you would map them out, are actually creating all kinds of mandala and flower shapes, or basically our own planets even. And even though they create a perfect shape, they are all also wobbling in a sense. So maybe similar to what we would call the precession of the equinoxes, if I understand that correctly. So I just find it very interesting that there is this very beautiful pattern. However, within the pattern, there is a small imperfection or also a small acceleration within, or a small change, so that it's always spiraling on in that sense. And the second idea that comes to mind is the harmonic convergence, which, as I understood, happened in about 1988. And
I celebrated that day. I was with a really wonderful group of people, and we were in a really we were out in Joshua Tree, and that was a really intense energy that day.
Nice. So now we're bringing it full circle, because this is also one of the dates that my favorite channel, Bashar, is specifically noting, also in terms of a type of, he mentions 80-year cycle for humans at this time in particular. So that basically something happening around, let's say, 48. Few things happened around that time. Then 88, and then the next part would be around 2027, as I understand it. However, of course, there is always something going on. And in regards to your Piscean observation, I would just assume that right now it appears even more crazy and maybe even more illusory than before, which is one of the qualities of Pisces, because now we actually are switching into a new layer. So those already connecting to that, let's say, new density, or just new, let's say, star sign quality of clarity potentially, may be just a lot more aware of it than before.
Well, and the other thing that happens, you know, when those changes happen, it's not like there's a switch that gets flipped and now all of a sudden it's not Pisces and it's Aquarius. You know, the rumblings of Aquarius, and you know, the thing about the signs and the ages of the signs is that they're at their most intense about the qualities, the purest qualities of those signs, right as they go into that sign, and then those things wane over the course of that transition. So you're getting Aquarian energy that's growing, that's merging now with Piscean energy that's fading, and it's kind of a weird mix. You know, I wanted to make mention of something that you brought up just a second ago, and that's the precession of the equinox. You know, we think in terms of our experience and passage here on Earth in terms of such short groups of time. Like, even if you said the average life of a human was 100 years, you know, in geological time, that is that's a second. That's not even a whole second. That's a millisecond of time. You know, and one of the things that I think people tend to forget is that, you know, the Earth doesn't spin on a solid axis. That axis is wobbling, the precession of the equinox, and that's a cycle that goes around in 26,000-year cycles. So the actual North Pole of the Earth is somewhere different all the time. That's always changing. That's never, you know, solidly where they say that marker is on the top of the Earth. So, you know, when things like climate change, for instance, talking about glaciers melting, and if you really look back on those times, the Earth has gone through so many cycles of freezing and heating up and freezing and heating up, and then outside things like giant asteroids that impact the Earth and pretty much cover it in chemicals and dust, and changes the whole environmental scope of that environment for a long time. And it's interesting to see. I certainly think that's a subject of concern and areas where we can do a lot more about. But I think that the crisis and the immediate, we're in imminent danger of death and that kind of thing, is a little over exaggerated. And I think when you look in terms of kind of a whole cycle for the Earth, one of those transitions where the pole wobbles a whole 26,000 years. If you think in those terms of that being a day for the Earth, it just kind of opens your projections to some wider criteria and some other information to evaluate what's happening, against. So anyway, that's all I had to say about that.
Thank you for that perspective. I think it's always great to take a step back. Higher self perspective also includes, of course, a different view on time. We have the references from, for example, the Bible, which may be most cryptic in terms of how could it be that individuals are described as living hundreds, thousands of years. Now we may ask who these individuals were. We may also ask, let's say, what their lifestyle was, and we may also ask what epigenetic triggers we may actually access in this life to also potentially, and I see this as a very real path, potentially extend our lives, or at the very least be very conscious during our lives and very healthy. Because I would also agree with you. I am an alarmist, however, only in the sense that I would say the alarm clock of consciousness in that sense is ringing. And for those who can hear it, it's time to wake up. However, it's not about maybe any fearful action or anything like this. It's, of course, just about self-recognition and understanding many of these things. And also, as we are closing down the age of Pisces, potentially, maybe settling with some of the largest illusions that maybe many have bought into culturally through education and so on. And I would just say in general, it's always great to question those things that generally go unquestioned, even just as a fun mind game. And many times
those are the best things. Those are the best things to question. Absolutely.
Yes, that's where one can always have great fun if one enjoys these processes. And then even if one may say, all right, the general consensus that I believed so far actually is true, it's still worth investigating, because many things that seem so solid and clear also, of course, have other perspectives. And if nothing else, it may at least help one to then understand others who may actually have different views. And there's always usually another layer to the onion, at least at these still somewhat Piscean times. There is truly a lot to unlock, I would say. And as we decided that today we would also do a reading, I have a suggestion, which actually is, let's say, a prediction, somewhat of a prediction, properly said, actually, an energy reading of a probability by Bashar, as he apparently was recently pressed at a transmission to deliver something along these lines. So what my idea would be, I'm curious as to what you would say, is I would play the sample, as it has been shared online widely already, and Bashar Communications didn't have an issue with it. I will rebroadcast these 2 minutes here. And what I would like to do then, if you agree, is that you actually do a reading. The first thing I thought about, also because it's one of your favorite layout methods, is to simply do an elemental reading with potentially one added card, which I would then call the Akash or Ether card or whatever, which may be then giving, another additional hint, let's say. What do you think?
I think that would be a wonderful way to go. And I would throw out to you that I'd love to do the spirit card as an angel card. We'll do the elemental reading with the tarot deck, and we'll do the Akasha card, the Akash card. Is that what you were calling it? The Akash card?
Basically just have a, like, let's say, fifth element card in terms of love and so on and so forth, and space and Akash. And what we can also do, however, I will leave this part up to you. I just received back my Galactic Heritage cards, which are specific alien cards. So then if you would like, eventually I can also draw one of those.
Sure, let's have fun. So yeah, I'm down for the process. Let's do it.
Great. So what we're going to do now is we're going to listen to a quite recent transmission of Bashar. And yeah, I'll just let you listen to it, and we will use this as a cue. I actually even thought about there is some quite famous remote viewers. This is something very interesting for anyone to check out. They are called Farsight Institute. They make all kinds of super interesting remote views by several very skilled remote viewers on different targets. And what's so interesting is that there the target actually always only is a number. So they really have no clue. However, one can really tell they are describing the same thing. Whether that then is true or not is still for everyone, for themselves to figure out. However, it's really interesting. And they also do this in a sense of a queuing method. So we're going to do something similar here, even though the information is quite more concrete. We're just going to use that energy link. And then ideally, latest in about a year, we will be able to see to what extent the energy reading we are doing now will be matching up with a potential event actually happening. So anyhow, here's the 2 minutes by Bashar. Enjoy, and then we're going to do the additional energy reading.
This requires more input than usual. One moment. We are gathering consensus from different sources. One moment. There is a high degree of probability of a very noticeable, pivotal event that may crop up in the area you call the Eastern European bloc. That will change many things. This may occur as late as the time you call September. It may occur earlier than that, but it may occur as late as the fall of 2020 and be a pivotal moment in your social understanding, your political understanding, and the revelation of circumstances heretofore hidden. This is all we are allowed to say. So look to the Eastern Bloc in Europe and watch for the signs.
Yeah. So here we go. Bryan.
So you want to know what do you want to know exactly?
Well, actually, because it can represent so many things, I do not even have any specific question. What I was thinking about was simply do an elemental reading, and then simply from the archetypes and energy perceived, we can construct whatever story or perspective we can at this point, and we just go with it. Of course, obviously, it's not about being right or wrong, but I think, well,
Sure.
let's say at least,
Yeah.
yes?
Yeah, let me get shuffled up here.
Definitely.
You know, just a moment on shuffling. You know, I do lots of readings. I keep my cards right next to me, and man, I do lots of readings during the day. So, you know, an issue is always achieving randomness again after you do a reading before you do the next reading. And that shuffle process, you know, it's like riffle shuffling, you know, that I did that uh, only for a long time. And, you know, you're having to do 11 or 12 riffle shuffles to start getting randomization again. Anyway, I ran across this technique by this woman named Norma Cowrie, and it's where you hold the deck in your left hand and you push a card out from the bottom and a card out from the top, and then put those down, and then just keep doing that throughout the entire deck. And then once you do that, I do a thing where I pull out the center of the deck, put that on the top or the bottom, and then do several riffle shuffles. And man, you're there. You really have randomness achieved again. And depending on how fanatical you want to get, you can do that several times. But even just once through it like that for quick stuff works really, 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 really good. All right, let me get focused here for just a second. I always find it interesting when I'm shuffling. Occasionally a card will just sort of jump out of the deck. And that always has some interesting significance. But in this case, the 10 of Pentacles just jumped out of the deck. Love that card. All right, here I'm getting ready to cut.
I can comment as much as you like. I'm just giving you the space, so it's up to you. Also, I don't want to disturb your shuffling.
All right, let me do this layout here. Okay. All right, so the first column is a column of 3 cards, and that is the fire column. So that's relating to the energy surrounding the situation. And I also use an element of past, present, and future to this. So the first card would be just like the immediate past, not the far past. The middle card is the presentary moment. And then the last card would be the immediate future. So in the end of this, we can do, you know, the columns for the elemental readings, but then also look at that horizontally and flow across that. So like the first 4 cards would be a past, the middle 4 cards would be the present, and the last 4 cards would be the immediate future. All right, so the very first column, fire column, energy surrounding the situation. The first card is the 6 of Cups, which is a really good card, but it is a water element card in a fire element column. So that is ill-dignified and takes some of the good edge off of that. The next card would be art. And that
Just briefly, just to be very clear, we are now moving on the fire column. So the first card was fire and immediate past, right? 6 of Cups.
6 of Cups, exactly.
And
So,
now the second card would be fire present, right?
right, exactly. And that card is 14 art in my deck. I think that's temperance in other decks, in the Rider-Waite deck.
Right.
And you know, the thing that is always the immediate take on this card is the angel holding two opposite elements, alchemically transmuting those things into a whole, which I just love. That's about transformation and about changing the the two most opposite things and bringing those together. And then the last card in the fire column, which would be the immediate future, is the Six of Swords. The Six of Swords is a really good card, and an air card in a fire column, there's no elemental problems with that. And the cool part about the Six of Swords is it's like finding new places for sustenance. It's like you've exhausted this source of food and nourishment that you have, and now it's time to go off in search of something new. And it's also not just the blind search into something new, it's also that eureka moment where you go, where you get some inspiration and some direction you maybe never would have thought of before, where there's a new idea and a new plan develops out of that idea and that inspiration that can actually move you forward. Okay, so let's move to the water column, which is totally about emotions. So this column is what people have felt, are feeling, and will be feeling about that situation. So the first card is a fire card, which again will be ill-dignified in the water column, and that's the Five of Wands. The immediate present is the Ten of Cups in the water column. Super good. So you come out of some arguments and disruption and conflict into a moment of emotional abundance. And the thing I love about the Ten of Pentacles that came up first as a pop-out card, and like the Ten of Cups, it's emotional abundance, it's joy in all directions. The Ten of Pentacles is material abundance in all directions, and they're not just momentary, fleeting little bumps of joy. They're lasting, they're abiding, and that's a state that can exist for some time. And then out of that is the Hermit, seeking his inner light and seeking his own inner peace. And I think that's so where things are moving. It seems like right now everybody's trying to police everybody else, when instead you need to focus that discerning eye inward on yourself and take those inventories and make those decisions for how you want your energy to project into the world, and to be concerned less with what other people are thinking about what you're doing, or what anyone else is doing on their path. That's their path. Okay, so then we're moving into the air column, and that is about plans and mental thoughts going on about it. It's what's brewing in the minds based on the energetic charge from the fire column, from the emotional content of the water column, and now the plans that are being made and thought of about that. So the first card is death. The card for death. So, that's we're seeing tons of changes in this country, and I mean, look what just happened in Britain and all over the world. There are cultural and social and changes, sudden changes of every kind, and death doesn't really relate to me to a physical death or like the death of a person, but more to a death of a way, and especially in this column, it's the death of a way of thinking and a way of conducting yourself through life. And based on the input from Bashar, it's probably a pretty sudden change. So the next card is the Four of Cups. Not one of my favorite cards. That it's kind of like the hangover the day after the party. You've just come from the exuberance of the celebration and the Three of Cups, and it's kind of like the next day. So it would kind of say, and that's sort of happening right now. People are really dissatisfied in pretty much every direction you see, man. There's somebody really upset. And I think it's moving into that zone where people are seeing the shams that are out there. When I was a young man, CNN started in Atlanta where I lived, and that place was the bastion of trying to tell the truth. And they told really hard truths all the time. And now it seems like worldwide, the media is just like, they're just telling stories. They're making shit up depending on their political agendas and their points of view. So, where do you go to get real information? You really have to dig on your own to get anything that's concrete or has any factual truth to it past ideological truth. So, all right. So that's that column is death. The Four of Cups, and the last card is the Two of Swords, which in the air column has quite a bit of juice. And the thing that's encouraging about that sign is kind of a harmonious peace. If not for good, at least for the moment. So I think that what will wind up happening out of that scenario is that people will find a way to coexist and to celebrate each other rather than judging and tearing each other apart. Okay, last but not least. So we've got the fire column, the water column. The fire column's about the energy surrounding this. The water column's about the emotions and the feelings that are going into it. The last column are the plans and the thoughts, the air being into it, and left unchecked. If none of those things get pushed so that those conditions change, the likely outcome in the material world is the last column, the earth column. And the first column is the Fool, which, when you're striking off on a new course, that's always a wonderful card, because you're taking off with this blind naivete that everything's going to be all right, and you have faith that it's all going to work out, even though the dog's barking around your feet and just trying to distract you, but it takes off with this attitude without a lot of preconceived notions and without a lot of things already learned, but it starts off and it's a great student, like a student mindset, where you're going to learn and you're going to be informed and you're going to follow a new course of study or something like that. It's great at the beginning of a magical quest. All right, so that would be the immediate past. The present card is the Five of Pentacles, which is financial ruin. Wow, not a very good card, especially not in that particular place. But that's not just about finances, but that's also about life and being out in the cold and left out, looking in at everyone else celebrating. So that's the moment at hand. But then that's followed by the very last card, which is, the first card of this reading and the very last card carry a special weight for me. And this last card is the Six of Wands, which is about success and completion and anticipation and joy, and the immediate outcome of the whole scenario seems to be really positive on that note. So if we look at this in the immediate past, we have the Six of Cups, the Five of Wands, the Death card, and the Fool. Then in the immediate moment, in the present moment, we have art, the Ten of Cups, the Four of Cups, and the Five of Pentacles. And then coming up for the immediate future, it's really very hopeful. It's the Six of Swords, the Eureka moment, the Hermit, and the quest for inner knowledge and projecting that out into your light, out into the world. The Two of Swords, which is our harmonious peace, and the Six of Wands, which is about success and joy and celebration and arriving at an awesome outcome. Raphael, you would ask me to pull a spirit card, which I did, and that card happens to be the Tower. Very intense card, and that card can be about, if you're the guys in the tower getting hit by the lightning, it's a horrible card. But if you're the lightning blowing up, the status quo and finding some new waves, that's a really awesome card. And in this particular instance, that's how I would, it's like what was the house isn't going to be the house anymore.
And just because you are using this layout in a sense more expanded than I first understood it or remembered it properly, we would even have potentially 3 cards for the spirit as well. I mean, now you picked a tarot card, where we mentioned maybe we would use an angel card. However, as it's especially because it's a tower, I would say we go for 2 more cards also for the spirit column. And then we see in what way we want to add the angel and the alien cards as well. Because I just, drew out this chart, and I would say it makes sense, especially if the first spirit card is a tower, then I want to see 2 more. What do you think?
Already shuffling.
Great. So just to understand the logic behind it for everyone listening, as just explained, the Tower card, very intense energy, usually associated with transformative processes. Also, it's the card right behind the devil and right before the star. And definitely sudden change, great transformation. So I'm kind of assuming that this would refer to that event or to the immediate past sense of that event, which we are energy reading right now. So that's why I'm particularly curious as to the other 2 cards. And then we're going to decide how to add the angels and aliens into the mix as well. Bryan, you got the conch.
Sorry about that. If we look at that as past, present, and future, the tower would represent the immediate past, which really, I mean, when you look around, you don't have to look very far to see that evidence in pretty much every direction. So the next card would then represent the immediate present and what's going on right now. And that card is the Eight of Pentacles, which is an awesome card. That card represents mastery over your craft, and it's also the card of apprenticeship and learning a skill with mastery and absolute ability in that, and deep knowledge. And then the very last card would be the Nine of Cups, which is one of my favorite cards. A lot of people's favorite cards are the Ten of Cups and the Ten of Pentacles, and I do love those cards. I mean, how could you not love a lasting abundance? But the thing I love about the Nine of Pentacles, the Nine of Cups especially, is it's like the gibbous moon. It's that day before the moon goes actually full and it's finished. and there's a sense of completion in that energy. And I love the sense of the rising wave just about to crest with the nines. I'm thinking about the nine of Pentacles and the Nine of Cups right now. And the Nine of Cups represents to me these 9 full cups that are just overflowing with joy and abundance, but there's a last cup waiting to be filled, and that represents your hopes and your fondest wishes to come to completion, which is then followed by the 10 of Cups representing achieving that. And we have both of those cards in this layout, which I think is just incredibly awesome.
So what I would suggest is we just keep with the format and go for 3 angels, and then I'm going to go for 3 aliens. What do you think?
I find with the angel cards that just one of them is very profound. So let me get a shuffle up on that, and we'll forge ahead.
Right, let's do that. And regarding the aliens, let's say we also then just pick one. Maybe let's do that.
Awesome. Great idea.
All right, and I'm shuffling as well. All right, I got mine. It's not revealed yet.
Why don't you go ahead and do yours? I'm still.
All right. So what we have here is, very interesting for many reasons. It is a card associated. So this is the Galactic Heritage cards. This is not a standard tarot deck. This is more of an oracle deck with 108 cards. This deck was created by Lissa Royal, and highly recommended to anyone interested in the whole, let's say, alien timelines and perspectives. Very, I would say, positive and self-empowering information, and a great repository. So anyhow, this card is associated with the Pleiadians, of which in this deck there are 12 cards for the Pleiadians, 4 past, 4 present, and 4 future. This one is one of the past cards, and it is called Blind Enthusiasm. However, what's added, and also of course gives it a whole other twist at the same time, is that also these cards are numbered through. And how could it be anything else than the number 42?
The answer to all things. The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy was a really masterful piece in so many levels, and they house like serious truths in this kind of like tongue-in-cheek sort of like mode. I read the book when I was very young and then saw the movie later, and the best thing out of that whole thing is the big statement on the back of the book: don't panic. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, you didn't. It's all great to know. And of course, this cannot be repeated often enough. Everyone check out Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. There's also a movie about it, where in which also this whole 42 mystery is explained, and then just connected to the Tarot, which is the Two of Cups, the Lord of Love. And then it can all make sense again in a different way. Although, of course, the official explanation is that this is just the wild card. In the ASCI coding, the 42 would be the wild card star. However, that in itself is also very interesting symbolism, of course. So, Bryan, you're up.
Okay, yes. Okay, here. So, we got number 21, which is the angel of the ardent desire to learn, Angel Nelchael. And I love reading the exact readings that I channeled, that I did automatic writing for. So I'll pass these on. The crisis has passed. Your work has produced good results and something great is on the way. Your talents and sensitivity lie hidden just beneath the surface. Allow your metaphysical interests to develop. Open your heart. Deep fulfillment is realized through love. Give and receive it. Love is a relationship. Share your ideas, your touch, your progress, your projects, and your growth. Follow your heart and you will know joy. Your hopes will be complete and there will be a happy conclusion. Success, the beginning of a new life cycle and the commencement of a love which is mutual. Dude, okay, you have the gift of an abundant communicating heart, the ability to communicate feelings, especially the nurturing, positive, lighthearted feelings of love. The emotional riches that you experience, the Ten of Cups, the emotional riches that you experience are shared with friendship and hospitality. You love to celebrate your mutual accomplishments and your work, and you work well with others because you bring out the best in them. People reveal aspects of themselves that they normally couldn't share. Your natural grace, rhythm, and harmony make you enjoyable to be around. You inspire others with your belief in them and their capabilities. And the card that the tarot card that goes with this angel card is Three of Cups that we just talked about.
Perfect. That's what I like. A good celebration. And
Right?
so what I would do is I will also read one of the paragraphs of the book for the reading for the Galactic Heritage cards, just also to give some background reference here. That's all right.
Awesome.
All right. So it goes. Kindly mute your mic in between just so that the audio is clear.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you so much. So again, this is number 42, Pleiadian card, blind enthusiasm, past. Past here just means the time-space coordinates as to how we would relate to that particular story shared by the Pleiadians within this, let's say, probability framework of realities we are discussing right now. So it says, Pleiades, blind enthusiasm, past. A habitual pattern of the Pleiadians, when they were a young species, was to become very excited about an idea and implement it without thinking it through. What are the far-reaching implications of these actions? Who benefits and who is hurt? Take a good look at the times when you may have done this in your current life. In the eyes of the universe, there are no mistakes. However, everyone has the responsibility to see beyond their own excitement and try to make choices that support the whole rather than simply the ego's desires.
Oh man, dude, like every one of these cards. And just an interesting side note, you had number 42, I had number 21.
Yes, very good. Yes,
half of
yes.
that.
Yes, perfect. And in a sense, even we could say 21, even though it's an angel, again, we are now mixing system in a non-kosher fashion. It would be the universe. And then 42, of course, Two of Cups, or let's say two universes conjoining, which of course now,
Yeah.
if we take it back to the whole topic, because somehow along these lines, what I kind of picked up, I didn't see the whole transmission yet, was that it may be related to some kind of a contact event, or rather to some kind of a revelation that there is, in a sense, actual support being given by etheric extraterrestrial intelligence, which of course always is given, I would say, because we are all connected to everything, we can't even help it. However, that there would be some event in which then, at least for some, I would guess, it would become more clear that there is actual, I would say support. Because I would definitely assume it would not really be an intervention. And even if it would be, as there has been discussed that several times, actually different nuclear devices or whatever they may actually be, but let's just say weapons of great destructive power, have actually been disabled by so-called UFOs, wherein which also, for example, Bashar, in a sense, claims responsibility, not necessarily as their own race, but in terms of, let's say, the Federation. However, how I would understand this is that, of course, even all of these apparent interventions or support can only happen due to like vibration to like vibration. And I find it particularly interesting because the reasoning, in a sense, in terms of the whole destructive capability, was simply that quote unquote extraterrestrials are preventing it because it would tear through the reality fabric and disturb, let's say, galactic neighbors or reality neighbors, which we have no business disturbing. So that is one of the aspects, which also has like a somehow protective feel to it. However, I would also assume that because we are all interconnected, that this would even mean that even assuming there was some kind of a strange power structure still existing, which would have a nefarious purpose or goal, that if the collective or enough individuals, or even just you individually, actually decide for a positive timeline, then I would even assume that then quote unquote so-called extraterrestrials or whatever energies or emotions or frequencies would naturally flow into that reality and in a sense make it appear as if something is intervening from quote unquote above. However, all of these energies which we may see, which may eventually turn out to be quite positive as far as the reading goes, even though it may be confusing in the beginning, they are all still, I would say, very much our own energies and our own resonance. For them to resonate simply with another parallel Earth. And of course, talking about this now, one universe, two universes, desire to learn, and maybe even this blind enthusiasm, understanding, of course, would further, for me at least, point into this direction of some kind of a revelation or more refined understanding, or even for some type of a proof, let's say, that there is positive synchronization and communication between what we would generally call the human collective and various potentially even quite closely related so-called alien species.
Very true. Very true. Well, that was very, very, very revealing. You know, before we leave the tarot subject, I wanted to acknowledge a couple people from the last, do work on your own divination system. You know, a couple people have gotten in touch with me about that, and I'm in the middle of, offering my opinion about some stuff, and it's so exciting. I love doing that so much. And I'm getting help on a couple of the new decks. I've got 3 decks in the works right now that are nearing completion. So it's really cool. And I would really love to encourage anybody with tarot questions about readings, whatever, or working on your own deck. Please email me. Please get in touch. I'd love to participate with you.
This is super amazing. And this is how I always say I love quote unquote working. Even here one can have different perspectives. Everyone has their place. I'm just very happy that these things are just happening. Synchronization is happening, frequency is increasing, and like vibration to like vibration, I repeat myself. Amazing. I'm very, very happy. So yeah, I can just repeat what you just said. Anyone reach out to Bryan. I personally wouldn't really know of anyone. I'd rather ask about these things. A few people come to mind, of course, which also have been on shows already. However, I can just say that even when I was researching in terms of which kind of deck I would want to use, as I mentioned maybe in the first show, that's how we basically met, also quite synchronistically. And so anyone who would like an independent and also quite a refined look at whatever they're doing, including both the process of how it's being done and also the content, definitely contact Bryan.
Absolutely.
Amazing. So I would say then this may be a good point to play some music, and then potentially we get some updates, maybe if you would like still to share on the decks, and then we see whatever else we wanted to get into, some potentially stones.
I'm dying to talk about some crystals.
All right. So we see where this is heading. And even here, of course, we have great relationships, because one interesting thing that Bashar is mentioning since quite a few years is that the human body actually is increasing its now pick the right element, silicium content. So basically similar things like chips are made of, apparently. And this is very interesting because, of course, different elements have different resonant qualities. So even aside from whatever our DNA or epigenetic triggers may be doing, it's just very interesting to consider what kind of substances do I put into my body, because usually, of course, also very, very healthy things have very specifically structured, for example, water within them, but also very specific elements of specific qualities. And that's also, of course, always a very interesting resonance field to play around with, Bryan.
Yeah, for real. Like I think I mentioned a couple shows back that I eat a lot of really specific foods depending on what kind of practice I'm in. Like doing physical effects and telekinetic stuff really sucks out the oxalic acid out of you, which you can get from pretty much any citrus thing. But my favorite are oranges, fresh oranges, and the pulp and all that whole little structure of a fruit is just kind of like a little energy miracle. And dragon fruit and monstera, delicioso, just incredible foods to replenish. You lose chromium a lot too, and one of the best ways to get that, I wind up eating a small piece of red meat, like probably once a month, just to make sure I get that chemically back in. But yeah, foods as a whole, we could do a whole show on just food. So sorry to digress.
Most definitely we can, and I would even say we shall. One thing that comes to mind, my current favorite is shilajit, also called mumio, which is the Ayurvedic panacea. It's like a black tar-like substance, and even if you just taste it, you can taste it's just plenty of minerals, and even the strange taste already can tell you that it's very, very healthy to use. And at least in Ayurvedic medicine, as I understand, this is the panacea. If you look for it online on eBay and find a good source with a good quality, it can even be pretty cheap. And it's very nice because it's something very, let's say, simple to eat. It's very, I always like things which are very high density, let's say, both in terms of information and also physical information, let's say. So again, we see everything related. And before I talk myself into an infinite fractal, I'm going to play some music. Bryan, how is it?
That's the only reason I do this show, because you pick really great music.
Good enough for me.
Yeah, I'm going to make you send me that song list again too, please.
Totally gonna happen. So, Bryan, yes, crystals, of course. However, we also have a guest. Would you be willing to, let's say, put her on a spot right away?
Absolutely, go for it.
All right, so hello and welcome, Tulsi, Michaela. How are you?
Hello, nice to meet you. Everything is fine. But I have a question about these alien decks or angel decks. So I look at the homepage and see what's going on, but it's possible to see it here on the left side.
To see what exactly? Oh, okay, I understand. Okay, to see the reading itself. All right, yes. Well, right now, I mean, technically, if Bryan were to make a Snapchat real quick and post it, this would be possible.
I already closed out the deck and wrapped it back up. So
Oh, it's already gone, but don't worry, it's not gone because first of all, it's recorded, and also I jotted down the details. So what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna post it here right away. This is now just internally, but still. And so I still have it right up here in case there is a specific question you have or something about the reading you would like to discuss.
So I hear and look, and it's easier for me to see the exactly the tarot picture what you're talking about.
Yes, in this case, we have no graphical representation. I just basically posted the text version, which you may or may not be able to read properly. It's just a short notation. If we can work with that, we can. Otherwise, next time we will just make sure to make a snapshot right away, so we can then use that to discuss the reading in detail as well.
Easy. Thank you.
Any question you have aside from that? I was just posting the main ideas in English, if you can relate to this in the chat.
Yeah, it's okay.
All right then. Okay, Bryan. So crystals, you mentioned a few of them already in the intro text.
Yeah, there are two kind of directions I want to go into. You know, a lot of people use stones, but there are a few that are a little lesser known, but are just amazing minerals. And I also want to talk about some really specific kinds of quartz crystals and how to identify those. And you know, let's start with those first. You know, one of my favorite kinds of, well, connecting to crystals is an amazing endeavor to do. You know, it's not just about holding it, it's about actually jacking up your energy, spending some time with them at the beginning of the process to make sure that your frequencies are connected, and then you'll get information. And one of the best crystals for me for getting information from is a crystal called a record keeper. And the way to identify a record keeper is, you know, at the top of the crystal, at the apex of the crystal, where there are 6 sides and faces that match into a point, or a lot of them are triangular. On the surface of that are little raised triangles. And sometimes they're tall enough to see without manipulating it. But if you're, when you're looking at your crystals, if you kind of like take it so that you get the light reflected kind of from the side, and that whole face is filled with light, you'll be able to see the little edges of the triangles. And you know, sometimes there's just 1 or 2 of them there, and there's always really good info with that. But sometimes, like, all of the faces will be covered with what looks like a graphic pattern of them that's almost like a code. And
we are not talking about something on the surface of the crystal rather than enclosed.
That's exactly right. And on the very top of the crystal, on the faces that, you know, point to the center and make an apex. So it's those top collection of faces. And you know, they're little raised triangles. Usually they're very small, but they can show up in lots of different ways. Like, I have one crystal that has like a stack of about 15 of them right on top of each other, gradually getting smaller. And it's quite amazing. And that crystal has been really good for writing in. I've used that a lot for my own self-exploration, and being able to go in through the layers of past lives has been one way, but also through the layers of my own misconceptions and you know, just things that are in your way that, you know, can wind up being layers of things that you're not even aware of. And that crystal, with all of those layers stacked up on top of each other, each one of them was kind of an individual little lesson for me. And I really, really, really love that crystal. So record keeper, that's a really specific one. You know, when you're looking for crystals to buy, I don't like buying crystals over the internet, no matter how good the picture looks. You know, it's like when you're in a room full of crystals, you know, and they're all, say, a table full of crystals that are similar size, you know, having someone else go and pick one of those out, it's like, I don't know about you, but every one of them has a different personality and a different feeling and a different frequency it's vibrating at. Some of which really call me, and some of which not so much. And it's hard. You really can't do that over the internet. Although it's the places that you can go and shop and find really cool stuff are getting smaller and smaller. That's why I try to make a quest out to the Tucson Gem and Minerals show every year, and just see some really amazing stuff. All right, so these next three crystals are
Just briefly, to stick with the quartz, maybe just for a second.
Well, we're still going to be on quartz. They're just
All right. Okay.
some
All
other
right.
quartz.
Right. Go ahead. Yes.
These three crystals are called a transmitter crystal, a channeling crystal, and a Dow crystal, DOW. And they're kind of my go-to. They're my go-to tools when I want to send something, or when I want to connect to someone or something outside of me. And the way that you recognize these crystals, when you're looking at the top of a transmitter crystal, there will be a triangular crystal at the very bottom, or a triangular face, and on both sides of that triangle will be two faces that have 7 sides. And they can be symmetrical. They don't have to be perfectly symmetrical, but a triangle in the center, sided by 2 7-sided faces. That is a transmitter crystal, and what that crystal is specifically tuned for is sending things out into the ether. So, anytime I have an intent I want to send to the universe, anytime I want to connect to, say, I'm not trying to have a two-way conversation with somebody, but I just want to send them an astral concept. That's a crystal that I use. Super, super amazing tool. Have you ever had any contact with any of these, Raphael, that you know of?
Well, I have some basic awareness that there are different specific types of crystals. And honestly, I have to say, because I have some friends who are really into crystals, and I'm kind of behind on it, let's say. Although I have a few that I also at least regularly hold. One of them is a selenite, the other one is an amethyst. And the one which I just grabbed, which I also have, which is actually on my altar, laying on a wooden Merkaba. And this is a double-ended quartz crystal with 6 sides each. That's the one I have in my hand right now.
Right. I love double terminateds. They're some of my favorite crystals. I have been such a fanatic about crystals, specifically quartz, since I was given by the family witch a little quartz crusher when I was like 9 years old, and it fascinated me to no end. So when I grew up, man, I started going out to Arkansas, to Mount Ida. It's one of the best places for clear quartz in the world, and it's been a while since I've done that, but actually going out and mining them and having them draw you to them in the ground is just a phenomenal experience. If you ever get a chance to do it, highly recommend it.
All
Okay.
I can share about this, just briefly, is that I've been to the Valley of the Bosnian Pyramids, and there at least they have apparently one quite specific variant of a stone, which they somehow call 7-type composite stone or something. And it appears to be, it somehow seems like a half noble stone or something. And it's apparently 7 different layers of minerals or something together in one plate. Also quite
Wow.
interesting.
You know what those minerals are, by any chance?
No, I would have to look it up, but as I understand, it's like 7, let's say 7 patterns or 7 types kind of molded into one, as I understand.
And are they layered over the top of each other, or just sort of randomly glued together?
I am actually not exactly certain right now. However, anyone interested, this type of material exists in the Valley of the Bosnian Pyramids.
Cool. Okay, so the next crystal is called a channeling crystal. And where the transmitter crystal was a triangle with two seven-side faces on either side of it, this crystal is a seven-sided face that you're looking through, and directly behind it is a small triangular crystal, so that you can look through the face and see the small triangular crystal. And that is, just as the name would imply, the channeling crystal, that is super good for tuning yourself to be able to receive your messages, have a little more clarity. And I find it easier to connect quickly and more deeply. So that's a real go-to for me. I use that pretty much on a daily basis. And then the last crystal is a really sacred crystal. It's called a Tao crystal. And when you look down on top of it, it has three seven-sided faces. And in between those seven-sided faces are three triangular faces. So it's very symmetrical. Looks like a hexagon when you look down on top of it. And that crystal is a combination of a transmitter crystal and a channeling crystal. And I have one that I've had for many years. I've had two over the course of my life, and those are very, very sacred to me. I take very, very good care of that one. And the places that I've gotten to go, not just with people but other dimensional areas, super, super, super useful tool. You know, some people, the clarity of them does seem to matter. You know, sometimes I enjoy the wispy little inclusions that are in quartz, but what those actually are really microscopic cracks where the crystal has been heated and cooled and heated and cooled and heated and cooled many times. So for me, it's not very much, but it does interrupt the flow of energy from the base to the point. And I like my crystals to be as clear as possible. I do have one crystal that is a channeling crystal, a multiple record keeper, and a phantom crystal at the same time. And what a phantom crystal is as you look inside the crystal, you can see in just a ghosted image an exact replica of the crystal small. And many, like the one I'm referring to now, has about 20 layers. So it looks like the crystal at one point was going to start growing and it just stopped there. So there's like 20 layers of the crystal getting bigger out to its final form. And that, for multiplying things, for expanding your consciousness, for expanding your metaphysical abilities, wow, crazy. And for doing anything that relates to the past, that is a magnificent tool to use, because each one of those layers can represent a certain frequency of reality. And it can be specifically about your own reality, like you can use that for past lives, or you can use that for exploring other dimensional realities here. And very, very, very wonderful, wonderful stone. So that's the troika of my three go-tos: the transmitter crystal, two seven-sided faces with a triangle in the center, a channeling crystal, which is a center of seven-sided faces, being able to see on the opposite face, on the opposite side of the crystal, a small triangular shape, and a Tao crystal, which is three seven-sided faces with three small triangular faces in between those so that it's perfectly symmetrical. So any
What I'm
questions?
curious about, of course, yes,
Go ahead.
which is simply because it's the one I have in my hand and which many other people may have, because I guess it's one of the more common forms. What would you say then is the main attribute of double terminated quartz, six-sided?
Well, double terminated quartz are fantastic for achieving balance. I've got a big one that's like 9 inches long that I brought back from Arkansas, and it is a little beast. And I keep that in the room, especially if I'm having meetings or anytime I'm just looking to keep balance and keep the energy in the room smooth so that I can just decide where to go with it when I want to. It's a really fantastic thing for that. It's great for holding if you're holding it in your left hand, you're bringing balance into your own physical sphere as well as your mental and spiritual spheres as well. And if you've got some parts of your aura that are a bit out of balance, using that in your left hand draws that and really can help just kind of equalize everything. Vice versa, when you're using it in your right hand, you can project balance into a situation, into a meeting of people, into a project that you're working on. So balance and equilibrium would be the main thrust of that particular crystal.
Yes, this was also, I may even have read about it at some point, of course, but now just holding it in my hand, I even felt some strange sensations in my left hand, even though holding it in my right hand. But I would also say equalizing force was the thing that came to mind.
Yes, absolutely. Those are very beautiful crystals. Crystals grow, when there were cracks and stuff in the host rock, liquid flowed into those cracks and solidified over many millions of years. So those crystals form in little cavities in the rock, and double terminators form by little seeds of crystals falling into the middle of that mud and growing independently, which I love too. It's not part of the big giant cluster that those were taken off of. Those grew near the cluster, but formed its own. That's why they terminate at both ends, because it started growing from the middle out to the ends instead of growing from a base up to the termination. So just fantastic little guys. Again, the clearer, the better. Are you familiar with Herkimer diamonds?
Yes, kindly refresh me, but yes, I've heard the term.
Herkimer diamonds are found in a kind of specific place in the States called Herkimer, New York. And what's really cool about them is that they're generally really small, but they are like super clear and they're all double terminated. Just about every one of them is double terminated. So
actually, just to be clear, I believe I have them right in front of me in my water pitcher.
Yeah, there you go. And they're just super clear and radiant, and man, they're wonderful. They're not really, they do come large, but it's rarer to see them. The more common way that you'll see them are small little marble size or smaller little double terminated guys, and they just thrill me. That's on my definite bucket list to go up there and mine some of those myself.
What would you say, just to give maybe one more practical reference, what is your view on putting crystals in water? Of course, there's many energetic uses, just as I understand, in particular with noble shungite. Everyone can research this on a website called Dancing with Water. There actually is even, let's say, chemical, scientifically, with, let's say, orthodox, traditional, current mainstream methods, verifiable changes occurring in the water structure and so-called fullerenes being made available, which appear to have very beneficial effect to human health. And then, as far as I understand, in terms of, there is a book called Vibrational Medicine by Gerber, I believe. And there it's quite interestingly explained how all stones and crystals and so on always have their own resonance. And especially with water and things like Masaru Emoto, the Rice Hado experiment, and so on, we even know what great effect just thoughts can have on water structure and preservation.
I was going to say, I think it's more has to do with whatever intent that you loaded the crystal up with before you put it in the water. I think that it does have some measured effect, but I think like Emoto's, work was about programming the water and how it relates to intent and thought, focused thought.
Precisely, and in a sense, what I'm suggesting is that even if it's just a permission slip, but let's say something that is working maybe within the automatic mind, which may then also even work without intentionally charging them, of course, that is always beneficial, and just being in gratitude for being able to drink water and so on is the best. However, I would assume that due to the structuring of crystals and their internal coherence, they always give off some kind of a resonance, also in a somewhat etheric field or structure level, information field. And as we know, water is highly responsive. It is quite easy for me to imagine that that would also, let's say, have a generic effect that may happen, quote unquote, regardless of intent, in a, let's say, structuring fashion. Again, I mean, the crystal is very well structured in itself. And therefore, the idea would be, as they always say, to structure your water, put it into the right structure as well. So again, there are some aspects of it, like with noble shungite, which are quite easily verifiable. And then you have the whole vibrational medicine thing where one may just read into it, but which also, to me, makes a lot of sense. And then, of course, there's the whole intentional part and the gratitude part, which is, I would say, of course, the most important thing. And where then anything else one may be doing may also be just used to amplify these effects.
I have a collection of crystal singing bowls. The biggest one is 18 inches across, and it's an F note, relates to your heart chakra. And depending on what I have a 7-tone whole note collection. So depending on what thing I want to work on, I pour my water into those bowls, and then using sound and that vibration and my intent while I'm running the little mallet around the outside of the bowl to make it vibrate. That's how I've been drinking my water for many, many, many years. Can't say recommend it enough. It's a really good way to go. It's like all these things that we're talking about are not in and of themselves an answer to anything, but when you start collecting them all together, like the foods you eat and charging your water and taking care of your energy field and grounding and charging up, it just really improves the quality of life for you. And when you're vibrating at a better vibration, people feel that around you too, and just by the nature of that, you're improving your world. Hey, I'd like to talk about the noble shungite for just a second. There is a huge wave coming with this whole 5G thing, right? And I'm very distressed about this 5G scenario. Because every bit of independent scientific investigation that I've been able to find out, it's really kind of bad, really bad for people.
That's most curious. Just synchronistically, there is one, let's say, everlasting guest also on the channel that is called Stop 5G, just in terms of its nickname. And also we have, as I understand, an almost weekly show, in particular in regards to news and actions to be taken in terms of 5G. And also, personally, I have a friend who actually does presentations. His name is Steve Wybro. And the really cool part about this is that he just briefly talks about 5G and what it is or what it could be. And of course, as you very well relate, simply put, it's just there is no point in any perceived advantages and the risks, and it's simply just not, even if we would want to achieve that, there's other technologies both easily realized with current tech and also others which are just going along the lines of, let's just say, gravity waves. We have completely different technologies theoretically already researched as well, which we could use. So anyhow, there's no point in 5G. However, with these talks, the great thing is also that first he's talking about that main topic, and within 5 minutes he starts talking about consciousness and about self-empowerment, and that even here it is all about perspective, is all about understanding, and consciousness ultimately is the way to go, because no matter what happens, which we may say we perceive as damaging our health and so on, and we don't need to wait for 5G to realize that.
No, absolutely. When I first started hearing about, I hate promoting conspiracy theories,
It's not about conspiracy, it's just about clarity.
No. When I first started hearing about it, I was like, here's another one, But as I got into it, I realized that not only the 5G, you're exactly right, not only the 5G, I went out and got an EMF meter for myself, and I started scanning around my environment, and it was really frightening at the levels that those things are. And they're so far past the levels that they've already proven scientifically cause genetic damage and all kinds of health issues. And 5G, and now those towers are really spread out. But with 5G, there are going to be multiple towers on every street. The entire environment will be coated with it. So I always hate really just being in the fear factor. Oh my God, this is going to happen. And I started looking into things that you can do to circumvent that. One of them is this paint that I've already painted my bedroom with that completely shuts out EMF frequencies. So, when I'm sleeping, when you're sleeping, you're at your most receptive, and consequently you're most vulnerable to outside influences. So when I'm sleeping, I'm in an environment that's free of those energies. So that's good. That's a really positive improvement towards that. The other thing that got me on this was the noble sungite, rather. and that, just carrying a piece of that on my person, decimated that EMF field that was attacking me. As I'm standing there, I handed my friend the piece of stone and looked at the reading, and it was way high. And I took the stone back in my left hand, and man, it went down to really minimal levels, actually just over the top of where they say it's kind of dangerous and dicey. But
so that's the real magic for you, everyone listening, not just do the magic, feel the magic, then with the proper methods be able to quote unquote even verify the magic. That's awesome.
Yes, exactly. So that's all on that. I just, I'd love to develop a line of cloth, sunlight, infused cloth that you could wear. Because it's going to be like jumping into the cesspool here shortly when all that gets fired up.
Also probably looks a lot more stylish than aluminium tinfoil hats. So.
Yeah, there you go. All right. So I got a couple. I got a couple more I'll throw out. I just want to keep them out. I'll keep them short, but I'd love for people to know about both of these. The first one is a stone called labradorite, and for those of you that are unfamiliar with that, it was a stone that's found in Canada and various places around the world. And when you first look at it, it looks really gray and like kind of dull, but it has these layers of refractive qualities that when you turn it into the sunlight in just the right way, it explodes into this radiant rainbow, multicolored rainbow of colors. And it comes in, it'll come in mainly blue with some gold stuff, mainly gold with blue and purple, or it comes in a complete rainbow of colors, which I absolutely love. And this stone is super. It's one of the best stones that you can use to increase your metaphysical abilities. It's great for your clairvoyant ability. It's great to hold while you're practicing, and just wearing it around and having it near you elevates those frequencies for you. It's great for your projective abilities. And one of the coolest little tricks with it that I love to use is if you're getting that vibe like you've picked up some sort of little negative energy around you that's kind of like, what's that? I found that focusing on the labradorite stone in my right hand and having it like in that gray zone and connecting that energy to that and then flipping it so that that rainbow kind of explodes. I don't know why, but instantaneously, I've got a nice little cleansing. All that energy leaves. So, man, just a super, super amazing good stone to make daily use of, labradorite.
So
And
I
go
have
ahead.
a actually a necklace which is a Ganesh shaped labradorite with a fine silver encasing.
What color is the labradorite? What's its
It
shape?
is, I would say it is, you're right, like without color, it looks kind of grayish, greenish, but
Right.
it's like green blue. And yeah, I usually wear it now for traveling and also for channeling. So yeah, I got it as a gift, of course.
When
so
you
perfect
when
fit.
you tilt it, do you get the color flashes?
I'm not sure if I would say that it's a rainbow, but definitely like flashes in terms of green, blue, and so on, certainly. Much more within the light.
I would strongly encourage you to find. I've got a little round one that's about 1.5 inches around and about 1/2 inch thick, and man, that is such a comfortable stone to have. And the flat surface of it on the top is the entire thing is like this radiant rainbow of colors. It's got like every single color, so it's affecting the chakra instantly. Amazing. Good little device to have for sure. So then the next piece, this one is really kind of underused, and not that many people know about it, that I'm finding, and that is nuummite, and that's spelled Nuummite. And that is like labradorite supercharged brother. It has a lot of the same qualities as labradorite, but it comes with an even more intense and higher vibration. By the way, it's been called the oldest stone on Earth. It goes back billions and billions of years, and it's really a very deep black with the most common samples have gold flecks in them. And there is also a variety that called spectral nuummite that does the same sort of rainbow color flash that labradorite does, but that's very rare to find. It's usually the black and gold. And those two stones separately are amazingly badass, but when you combine those working together, oh man, I've really gotten some great results. So those are two must-haves in my book. And the last one I'll bring up is the mineral fluorite, and I just love that mineral. First of all, fluorite comes in every single color, and it forms in a crystal matrix where the crystals form in square shapes. Although they do like double terminated quartz, you will find specimens called octahedrons that are exactly that shape, that have fallen off the cluster and grown out to separate terminations. And those are very, very wonderful. But the great thing for fluorite is mental clarity. Like, I keep a really nice piece of fluorite on my work desk, and every time I'm going to get started on a project, I really kind of juice up and get focused with that stone. And it really helps with focus, with mental clarity, with being able to hear that little voice inside you. That's the voice of inspiration and new ideas, but winds up getting kind of quiet sometimes. It really enhances that for me. And the different colors of it, like one of the more common colors is a really deep purple, and that's great for emotional and mental concepts. It comes in a really wonderful shade of blue and orange, and I've got one crystal that I'm looking at right now that I've had for many, many years, and it's a big chunk. It's like a blue big square that's about 6 inches square, and inside that crystal, going down in increments of about an inch, is another color of fluorite that is like a phantom crystal growing inside that crystal. So there's like 5 layers of different colors. There's a green, there's a yellow, there's a pink, there's a purple, and a blue. And it just, wow. Those multicolors like that wind up jacking up my energy so intensely, and the thoughts I am able to come up with, and places I'm able to go mentally when I'm utilizing that mineral, are just much improved over my usual vegetative state. So anyway, I will stop rambling now. Maybe we'll bring up some more at a later date. But that's fluorite, one of my favorites, and labradorite and nuummite. Nuummite was discovered in a town called Nuuk, Nuuk, in Greenland, and that's one of the only places in the world it's found.
Amazing. Thank you so much for sharing. Of course, this is again just a very brief introduction also into this topic. So I'm seeing again many different ways to branch this out. However, as we are almost, let's say, at the end of our allotted slot within the illusion of time-space, I would ask you, well, for anything else you would like to mention at this point, or any closing statements.
Well, a huge thank you to anyone who's taken their time and energy to listen and hear us. I really can't tell you how much I appreciate that. And I'd love hearing from you as well, as I know Raphael would too. And I just, this is that time of year when you just sort of reflect on the past year and all that's gone on. And I just want to send out a large wave of love and infinite gratitude for all the amazing souls I've gotten to connect with this year, and just wish you a phenomenal coming new year, and wealth and happiness and abundance in every direction you can find. And thank you to Raphael for letting me play. Appreciate it.